Okay, so let's dive into this really fascinating world where digital money, crypto, meets old school detective work. We're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how investigators use publicly available info to track dirty money and unmask the criminals who think they're totally anonymous.
All right, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to tackle the whole anonymity myth. Then we'll get into the blockchain and these digital breadcrumbs. After that, we'll see how you actually follow the money trail, check out the cyber detective's playbook, and wrap up with how the investigators themselves stay out of sight. Sound good? Let's go.
Okay, first up, the anonymity myth. Look, to really get how these investigations work, you first have to understand the playground where this all happens, and that's usually the dark web.
So, this is the big question, right? How do you catch a digital ghost? I mean, these criminals, they really believe that using crypto and the dark web makes them completely invisible. But here's the thing about ghosts. Even the digital ones, they leave traces. They leave these faint little outlines that a really sharp investigator can latch onto and follow.
The main tech powering this whole hidden corner of the internet is something called Tor, which stands for the Onion Router. And it's a great name, actually, because it literally wraps your internet traffic in layers and layers of encryption, kind of like an onion. It bounces your signal all over the world. This is the tech that made places like the infamous Silk Road possible, creating what everyone thought was a perfect shield for crime. All right, so we've set the scene, the dark web, the anonymity, but now let's talk about the core technology that, funnily enough, shines this incredibly bright light on everything they're doing, and that's the blockchain. This is where the magic happens for investigators, because this is where all the digital breadcrumbs are. So first, you've got the money itself. The official term is virtual asset, but you know what we're talking about. Bitcoin, Ethereum, that kind of thing. This is the digital cash getting passed around. And, when you hear about a ransomware attack, the bad guys always demand payment in this stuff. Why? Because they're banking on it being completely untraceable.
And here's the kicker. This is where that whole anonymity myth just completely falls apart. Every single transaction for something like Bitcoin gets recorded on the blockchain. Now, what is that? It's basically a public book of accounts that can't be changed, ever. So while your real name isn't on it, the transaction itself, it's out there for anyone in the world to see. Forever. This brings us to the real hero of our story, OSINT. That stands for Open Source Intelligence. And in this world, what it really means is taking that public blockchain data, all those transactions we just talked about, and combining it with other public clues you can find online. The goal? To connect those supposedly anonymous crypto transactions to actual, real-world people and places.
Okay, so we've got this public trail of breadcrumbs. Awesome. But how do you actually follow it? Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the actual techniques investigators use to follow the money. One of the coolest techniques is called taint analysis. Just think about it like this. A bank robber grabs a bag of cash, but a dye pack explodes inside, marking all the bills with red ink. Well, taint analysis is the digital version of that. Investigators can flag or taint the specific coins involved in a crime, and then just sit back and watch where that taint spreads across the entire blockchain as the bad guy tries to move the money around. And this right here shows a really common way they try to launder the money. It's called a peel chain. So a criminal will start with a big pile, let's say 10 Bitcoin, and they'll start peeling off tiny little amounts into tons of different wallets. In their head, they're thinking, I'm confusing the trail. It'll look like 1,000 little random payments. But here's their mistake. Every single one of those splits, every single transfer, every peel is permanently and publicly recorded. It's all there for an investigator to painstakingly piece back together. Now, doing this by hand would be impossible, so they use some pretty powerful tools to automate it. One of the key ideas is something called a wallet score. It's kind of like a credit score, but for crime. If a crypto wallet has been dealing with known shady places like dark web markets or ransomware addresses, its risk score shoots up. And that's huge because it lets crypto exchanges automatically flag or even freeze wallets that are too risky. Okay, so following the money is massive, for sure, but it's only half the battle. You still have to connect a digital wallet to a flesh and blood person. And this is where things get really interesting, because the investigation shifts from just looking at numbers to, good old-fashioned detective work and behavioral analysis. And you know what? It really comes down to classic detective work, because criminals, just like the rest of us, are creatures of habit. They get lazy, they'll reuse the same username across different dark web markets. Maybe they have a unique way of writing, or a specific typo they always make, like here, method instead of method. They get sloppy and reuse the same encryption keys, and you won't believe it, but sometimes their real email address is accidentally hidden right inside that key data. Every single one of these little slip-ups is a thread an investigator can pull on. So what are they using to do all this? Well, investigators have a whole arsenal of tools, many of which are publicly available. It's like their cyber detective toolkit. You've got sites like blockchain.com where you can literally watch transactions happen in real time. Then there's Bitcoin Who's Who, which can help link a wallet to a website. And even more advanced stuff like Wallet Explorer, which uses some really clever algorithms to figure out which group of addresses probably belongs to the same person. And look, this stuff isn't just theory from a textbook. These exact techniques are being used every single day in huge international takedowns. Take the Emotech case. This was one of the most dangerous malware networks on the planet. Investigators from 8 different countries worked together, used these very techniques to analyze the payments and link them straight to the criminals running the whole show. This stuff works. Okay, last section. And this one is absolutely crucial because when you're hunting really sophisticated criminals online, you have to make damn sure they can't turn around and hunt you. This is all about something called operational security, or OPSEC. And if you want a masterclass in what not to do, look no further than Ross Ulbricht, the guy who created the Silk Road. He made such simple, basic mistakes. He reused an old alias that was tied to his real email address. He logged into the Silk Road server from a public coffee shop, exposing his real IP address. It was these fundamental OPSEC failures that let investigators connect his online persona, Dread Pirate Roberts, directly to him. So the takeaway is simple. Investigators have to be way more disciplined than the people they're chasing. This means following some golden rules. First, compartmentalization. You keep your personal and professional lives completely separate online, no overlap. Second, you are always using anonymity tools like VPNs and Tor. You also have to avoid creating predictable patterns, what they call behavioral fingerprinting. And of course, every piece of data has to be handled securely. And that really brings us to the final big question. This is a constant cat and mouse game, right? It's always evolving. As the investigators get better tools, the criminals are busy creating new privacy tech to disappear again. So it leaves you wondering, who's going to have the edge tomorrow? Will the detectives keep up, or will the ghosts find a new way to vanish completely?